just thinking about a new hairstyle, combing online shops for a better down coat, or maybe for a laptop that actually has a W on the keyboard. Oops, that's me looking at my keyboard. Those things get more fear racing around in your head than when you do a presentation in front of your peers, when you're looking just a touch worn down. But let me tell you about the big thing that had me shaking my head at the idiocy of my past choices. Being a sole proprietor, not incorporating my business for years. Why is that one of them, you're asking? You're listening to the Unshackle Your Life podcast with Debbie Colburn, the place to break through all of the hidden things that hold each of us back, things that scare us and things that challenge us, and things we're just plain fed up with. We talk all things money and business, big and small. We dive deep, we get real, and we get raw, discovering and exploring what is really possible for you. It's a restart. If you've ever struggled with shame, worry, or just plain self-doubt, if you've ever thought it's not enough when you looked at your bank account or your credit card, if you're sick and tired of living a cycle of crisis to crisis to crisis, no matter whether it's in your personal life, in your business, or your relationships, then this is where you need to be. We'll bring you new ideas, tips, and tactics, and connect you to the resources to get you unlocking your own shackles and release your unique abilities. No matter what's going on in your life right now, maybe you're in survival mode, just barely getting by, living day-to-day, paycheck to paycheck. Maybe you're in a job or a career or running a business that is leaving you on empty, depleted, uninspired, or anything in between. I've got your back. Ready? So buckle on up, take a deep breath, and join me in a conversation about jump-starting your life and breaking free of your shackles and create that thing that you've been scared to ask for. Welcome to episode 83. If someone told you that they thought you're fighting to stay broke, that you love not having money, that you like just being in struggle, that you've built your life around that concept, what would you say? I bet it's something like, hell to the no, or what exactly have you been drinking or smoking? An immediate and vehement rejection of the idea. Am I right? But that's the exact conversation I had with myself. You remember, my inner gazoo, the guy that sits around invisibly on my shoulders and talks to me when I won't listen to myself? Only just a couple of years ago. And it was an immediate realization of an honest truth. I was, and had been for most of my adult life. I had systems, I had buying protocols, saving strategies, and triggers and habits that made that come to life, and it kept me there. In that place that you have heard me talk about before, addicted to survival. Now, how is that even possible? What does it look like? How can you spot the symptoms? And what can you do to start changing things? And yes, it totally doesn't matter if you make $36,000 a year, $360,000 a year, or $3.6 million a year. Or any other number. It doesn't matter whether you're a career professional or you're a business owner. Just like any other addiction, it can affect anyone, and most often we don't see it until it's taken over our life. That was my situation. The misconception of the addiction to survival is that the person doesn't have big dreams, or they don't have a vision for something better. And that is totally false. We do. And we do all the things. We do vision boards and affirmations and read the books and listen to the podcasts. We do the work. We try to automate our finances. We use pattern interrupters. We have coaches and mentors. All the things. But in the end, after short-term progress that could in fact be very stellar progress and create obvious success in some format, the inevitable self-sabotage comes flying in to rescue us. Woo, here I am, here to save you, and send us back to where we're comfortable. That horrific place that is survival mode, paycheck to paycheck, just getting by. My realization came as a government business program for entrepreneurs was coming to an end after a year. An entire year of getting paid to build a new business. Magic. It was exactly what I was looking for at the time. And it's what allowed me to create and to build the summit. You guys have heard me talk about that before, my 7,000 square foot training facility. And I knew the big problem people competing in the dog sport of agility had. I knew that problem. I didn't have to figure out what my niche was. I didn't have to figure out any of those things. I knew. This was like a no-brainer. I had that problem too. I had influence in the sport and in the industry. So, like I said, it was like a total no-brainer. It was an easy business to start and get traction almost immediately. And get paid to do that. It just happened to be a business model that violated my core values. Again, as you guys have heard me talk about, my need for variety and uncertainty and the desire. Like we talk about vision and stuff like that, is like I had to wait 25 years for technology to catch up so I could actually have the business model that I wanted, that would fire me up. But here's the kicker. And do you know what happened when things started to get tough? Like figuring out how to generate more revenue without needing to invest any more of my own time or money, both of which I was already in a massive deficit of. And when the landlord accepted an offer to sell the building that we were leasing, while I happened to be in Hawaii helping my daughter out, because she's a military spouse and she had 2 young kids and she had back surgery, and so I was over there helping, and he decided not to tell me that in 6 weeks I wasn't going to have a building for my business. And when my primary presenter committed suicide, not downplaying suicide, throwing a 4.5-day 50% sold out event 6 months before the event right out the window. Like, do you know what happened? Yeah. I started blaming everybody else for my shortcomings, including the government. This is how crazy this scenario is, including the government for not extending the program or its resources. Really? And all that stuff, it all just felt normal to me. That being in crisis and building back, I'd literally become an expert at it. It's kind of the reason why I call my signature program the Bounce Back Entrepreneur. But I've changed how I do that now, because in this scenario, I would build back, then I'd self-sabotage and send everything crashing down. It never really crashed down like crash. At least that's not how it felt like. Those things I described for you. I'm sure some people are like, holy shit, Debbie, how did you get through that? Well, when you've done it enough, you just do. But I build back only to lose it again. And I could never figure out why. It was like a cycle. And I just, that struggle to try and figure out what I was doing wrong, but it wasn't what I was doing wrong. When you're fighting to stay broke, fighting to stay in that survival mode, paycheck to paycheck, you are literally unable to see or even to create the ideas that could generate more revenue, reveal resources, people, things, skills that could help you. Contacts. You're on singular focus, and not in a good way. Because obviously, hyper-focused on a task is an awesome thing. Tunnel vision is an awesome thing if you're on one specific thing and there's a strategy, but not if you can't see anything else and you're looking for something. But because you're a survivor, someone who doesn't lose everything and then slide into depression and never get out of it. So I'm talking to those of you who believe in yourself. You believe in your ability to figure it out. You have bounce back ability. The building and growth start again. But aren't you really sick of climbing back the same way every time? I know I sure was, to get to the exact same point. Like, it gets a little stale. It gets a little frustrating. It gets a little, like, the novelty is long gone. That story is old history. And it kind of ties back to an episode that I did early on about being afraid to let go of your story. But really and truly, that's what this is. And what's so damn compelling about having nothing? And guys, I'm kind of using that term nothing or lose everything broadly, but it literally could be that you have nothing. But it also could be that you've lost a job, or you've lost a house, or a relationship, or you've lost a major contract that's put you into fight or flight mode in your life. So it's just, this is such a big concept. And you have to sit back and you have to go ask yourself, why do you feel more comfortable in the have-not world versus the have world? Well, we know why, don't we? Because we're always talking about this. It's all about the stories. It's all about the money stories, your relationship with your money, and it's all about the stories that you're telling yourself about what you think, what you believe is on the other side of the next step, or the next step, or the 5 steps down the road. The things that you don't have a clue about what those are because you've never been there. I mean, you're making a presumption based on what you've done before. Great if you don't want to burn yourself on the stove. Great if you don't want to capsize your sailboat or your canoe, not to put everybody on one side of it. Great if you don't want to start an avalanche, everybody's stomping on the part of the snow where it's going to break off and everybody's going to plummet. But in this case, we don't know. We have no idea how it's going to turn out down the road. Can you believe that making 20 calls or emails or texts is more scary than not knowing how to pay your rent in the next 10 days? Like, really? That's ridiculous. But it's not. How about upgrading some of those clothes that you've had for, well, let's just call it eons. And the trend, in your mind, the trend eventually is going to come back around soon, right? They always do. Just thinking about a new hairstyle, combing online shops for a better down coat, or maybe for a laptop that actually has a W on the keyboard. Oh, sorry guys. That's me actually looking at my old laptop here that needs a massive upgrade. It needs to be changed. Those things get more fear racing around in your head than when you do a presentation in front of your peers when you're looking just a little touch worn. But let me tell you about the big thing that had me shaking my head at the idiocy, and I'm not calling myself, little segue here, guys. When I say shaking my head at the idiocy, I'm not calling myself an idiot. It's just a term. There is no emotion behind it. There's nothing like that. It's just, it's ludicrous. Some of my past choices. But in this case, being a sole proprietor. And in any country, you know what that is. No formal legal stuff behind your business. Not incorporating my business for years. And why exactly would you do that, Debbie? Is what you're asking, right? Sounds somewhat inconsequential. Well, because having a refund when I filed my taxes was in fact my favorite and most effective savings strategy. And I always, always, always needed that refund mid-spring. And if I made more than a certain amount, I wouldn't get a refund. It's pretty simple from a tactical point of view. It makes lots of sense. And remember, 25 years as a professional accountant. Once an accountant, always accountant. So tactically, it made sense. And really, and I did that for years. And sadly, I also taught my son how to do it as well. Oh, to be able to go back about 25 years and make some better choices. As I guide and share in my programs, which you can find, anything that we do, it's not always all there, but you can always go to the website and see what's there. So much of what we do is driven by the stories we learned from our parents. Love them to death. But the world is different now. Money works differently. Technology is available. The salary we see or saw our parents earn, including pensions if it's there, it could be, and it doesn't really matter how old you are. This is across the board. It nails our income ceiling tightly shut unless we recognize it and release the blocks. I know, we just skated off into the woo-woo world. When you stay loyal to that ceiling, it pushes you to stay broke. Why do I say that? Because my family's ceiling is $70,000. It's been that number since in the mid-70s, all the way through right to now, 2021. As everyone living in the G8 country can attest to, if you're in a relatively, let's call them high income, not everybody's high income, but Canada, US, New Zealand, Australia, the UK, countries in Europe, South Africa, places in like Hong Kong and stuff like that. $70,000 really doesn't go far. It really, really does not go far unless you start scrimping and saving and depriving yourselves of things that, would fill your heart. But years ago, it did go a long way. But our brains didn't get that. They don't get the $70,000 back then is not $70,000 of buying power now. So I'm making this a short one this week because I want you to take a few minutes to consider, where are you fighting to stay broke? I don't really want to make more than, insert whatever number you want. Now here's the thing, guys, even if you are telling your friends or your colleagues or your employees or your partners that even if you're saying, I really want to make more, I want to make more money, I want to make more than $70,000, I want to make 100 or 150, 250, 199, something like that. And if you think you're exempt. So I want everybody to look at it really, really, really carefully, because this is all part of the under-earners scenario. And if you think you're exempt, I want you to take a quick peek from a different angle. Are there things that you do in your life, in your business, in your family, hobby, that you'd like to do, but you're not because you don't have the money? And ask yourself, why do I not have the money? Not a lecture, but look at your answers. It's one simple question. Is it fact, or is it a story, or is it an excuse? So that's my simple one this week on why we fight. We try and champion ourselves, I want to stay broke. That sounds crazy. Like, put me in a white jacket and send me to the loony bin. But in fact, that's what we are doing. So many of us are doing that. We are not saying, our mouth is saying it, but our actions and our habits and our doing is not saying, I want to be reimbursed for my value to the highest number possible in whatever is the very best way for me. Okay? So with that, we're here. It's the end. It's time for the question that I ask everyone at the end of the episode. I want you to take your time, give it some thought. So you got 2 questions, right? But I want you to do that first exercise. It's important, because if you're not doing these exercises that I give you, then you're kind of wasting your time. Or maybe it's not just the right time for you. Maybe you need to have a little bit more input and so on. That's what happened with me. So the question is, what is the worst thing that could happen if you unlock just one of your shackles today? The very worst thing. What is that? It's probably not as bad as you think it is. Hey, if this podcast got you thinking, please make sure you're subscribed and share it with anyone who needs to hear this. The link is in the show notes, and please drop us a review on whatever podcast player that you're listening on, whether it's Apple Podcasts, whether it's Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, you name it. And make sure that you drop over to our website, debbiecolburn.com/links/ that's DEBBIECOLBOURN.com/links/ to get our brand new 7-day quick action guide and to check out what's coming up in 2022. And please make sure that you're following us on LinkedIn and on Instagram, just to keep you on your toes, as a slightly different name, at MS Debbie Colburn.